So guys, I wanted to do a video talking about the post meta since we are now at least a few days in, and just talk about what people are going to be probably going on to, what decks might be decently good. So without further ado, let's start talking about some of the decks that in a post restriction world. So without further ado, let's dive in the video and talk about it. So as you guys know, the meta has been dominated by a lot of things in the past. And again, we have decks that still walked away scot-free and are still great and powerful. And again, I feel like even with the restrictions that we're starting to see, just even the beginning of it, we could easily do this. Limitless TCG. I know that we have events. There we go. Please give me my full screen, please. And F11 tools. And let's see, decks or tournaments. Let's go to tournaments. Completed. Let's go find the Digimon ones. Can we find that? Edit tournament filter format. We don't want just Pokemon. Tournaments. Let's go Digimon, because people have been already putting in. I know it's limitless. God, I hate when I don't know how to work the websites. Tournaments. Online. Completed. This should give us. I don't want just Pokemon though. Give me non-Pokemon, please. No. Completed. There we go. Let's edit filter. Remove this game. There. Boom. There we go. Eagle Nest. So this, if we take a look here, we have some good idea where decks are kind of falling, right? So first off, Gallant X definitely being non-hit, and a lot of its competitors got a little bit of a slap on the wrist, or Sakuyamon getting knocked down. Gallantmon is still a very powerful deck that, again, you have to respect in a format that this is still at a full set, which we know is a great card, but there's nothing wrong with this ideology that the deck can just stay the same. At the end of the day, they wanted to make sure that they hit the Rush OTK decks, which again, I don't even think the deck is dead. Let's even take a look at where Sakuya went. So let's open up clipboard here. Open image, please. So taking a look at post-restricted Sakuya, they kind of went with just full-on ruin mode, which makes a lot of sense, right? Being able to spam out ruin mode slows down a lot of decks. Now they don't have a full access to Digi plugin S to be able to cheat evolve, so they have to be trying to find this one copy. And again, when you have a full playset versus one copy, it's already a challenge and a half to get to that one copy. And now with the Sakuya that produces the Fox token restricted to one, and then they're playing Kazumon, which is very interesting because, again, you can't combo it with Sakuya X because it's not a Sakuya in name to be a valid target. It's just Kazumon. That is super important because once it's in the sources, it just doesn't trigger. And I don't think you can Digivolve on top of it correctly. So just something to think about, especially when you have Digivolve on Sakuya /X and its Digivolution. You get to play the token, and again, you won't get the token because you are playing Kazumon. So I don't think you can target evolve it. Oh no! This card is also treated as having Sakuya name, but I don't think you produce a token under its conditions when it gets underneath it. But it kind of makes sense that this deck didn't completely fall off. I think people are just going to adapt and evolve with it. Now we do have like Purple Hybrid. So let's open up Purple Hybrid. Again, this deck got hit a while back, and it has done actually quite well for itself, evolving. You know, the Arrestramon Superior mode getting added into the deck was a godsend, but also having access to the most powerful Gallantmons, because again, once you get to a certain threshold, you just spam these freaks out, and then your opponent can't just deal with the surprise attack. You know, this Gallantmon comes in if you only have one or nothing on board, so it comes in, checks something, and then basically you could just self pop this thing to swing in again with this, getting in those final attacks. Again, the deck has a lot of tools going for it in the right direction, and it's just something you have to be prepared for. You know, Jesmon. Let me see if we can open Jesmon. So this should be not just pure Jesmon. Interesting. This one actually went with Jesmon top end. I know that a lot of players were just doing the Genku and the Genku X for a bit, but having Jesmon in there is a decent splash. But with the Genku X and the Genkumon, they gave a sort of protection to the board that your opponent just could not out. If they couldn't out it correctly, I mean, then, you know, this deck basically got to cakewalk and just have those tops. And again, the deck is super strong, even going to this format. And I think a lot of players just need to figure out where they want to go with it. And I think Jesmon can still surprise everybody. You know, Omnimon Ace, Omnimon the deck. You know, let's just open up the image. Just taking a look, this deck is very much a powerhouse. Just being able to have, you know, these very powerful Omnimon, the Omnimon Alter S combo that can just lead to just OTKing your opponent. Because again, if you have enough of these, they'll spit them out. Because again, you can bring turn back with a tie and Matt. You know, Nokia being the mem setter. You just changed up your focus a little bit to being more to these guys, because Nokia is what you're going to want to start at, and then you go into, you know, having full access to trash this security when this thing survives and wins that battle. You know, self-destruct, spit out the two bodies, and boom. You know, a lot of players don't hate that, and again, I think there's that protection skill that it gets for when it swings is just that good. You know, green Galaxy Toolbox, let's take a look at this. So a lot of players were on this for a bit, but I think it comes down to how you want to play the deck. Galaxy is a fan favorite to some, not all, but with Galaxy, you kind of get this protection skill in the line, which is pretty decent for pure. And then, you know, just my favorite version was always being able to have the Diana and the Apollomon focus. Again, a lot of players know that that's a little more challenging, so we have to use like Hexablow and Mirage to kind of compensate, because again, even though Diana is probably our best level 6 right now for pure Galaxy, and then you have Apollo Ace to kind of just try to get into Grace Nova, we just, as much as we search in our deck, it doesn't always compute to where we want to be with the deck, you know. So the pure version for Ride is always the best in my heart, but I know that a lot of players have switched over to just these small hybrid. Again, you lose the protection and they fall off once you kind of, you know, toss these. Again, it's just one of those things. What this deck can do is very good, but it can lose out to itself pretty self-paced, right? You know, being able to attack at the end of turn as an inheritable, and being able to end of attack, you know, this Digimon on suspends is really good and sets up for just having that blocker shenanigans. You know, let's just see where else people have, because again, cash prize tournament. There was a cash prize. Ooh. Ban list. Let's just see where this one. Red, purple, Imperialdramon. That's another deck that a lot of people are sleeping on, I think. If we open up an image here, let's just take a look here. Interesting. I wasn't expecting the Davis and Ken, but again, Purple Memboost is about to come out of this deck pretty quickly, and I'm excited to see that go. We're going to be having in, I think, October, we should be having the red purple mem boost, so now you have full access to grabbing all your cards in this deck, and that's going to be huge for a mem boost for this deck. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to see evolutions for this deck come as soon as possible. I think we just have to keep looking here. Let's open up another version. So this one had Demonic Devastation, which is very commonplace. Miss Memory Boost, Purple Memory Boost. Again, extending your plays and having your opponent have to think about what you're doing is always scary. Being able to get the pieces you need is fantastic in my opinion. I really do like that. You got the deck didn't really lose steam in any capacity. This deck can OTK an opponent like it's nobody's business. So again, you're going to be walking into this minefield that your opponent has for you. And again, I think this deck, being as powerful as it is, didn't really lose any momentum. And I think players just have to adapt and understand what their deck does, right? So at the end of the day, I think Red Purple Imperialdramon has some good grounds to actually be a surprise contender to a lot of players under the right pilot, right? You know, Galaxy Toolbox, we talked, Black X-Antibody. So this should be the Alpha Open. Interesting. Kind of interesting to see when people play weird decks like this, but okay. Alphamon to Alpha Ace. Okay, I kind of get where they're going with it. Nothing too crazy, but Black Machinedramon. Let's just take a look. Pretty good targets across the board. I mean, Supreme Connection, Ultimate Connection are just great cards for this deck. We already know this. But Mugen is one of those decks that is definitely pilot dependent, and you have to be ready for it. There are like 4 different versions. There's the DM version, you have the option version, the purple base version, you have the black base version, and then you have the Growl engine. So, which again, that's Millenniumon's stick too, but Machinedramon is definitely a pilot dependent deck. And I think as time evolves and we get more and more time to settle in with the meta, but we won't really have much time because we will be having a new format coming our way soon. So that's super important to take a look at. But again, I like taking a look at metas that we kind of have. Ban list, win a box. Okay, so let's even take a look here. We have Omnimon Ace, Sakuya, Gallant X, Purple Hybrid, Gallantmon X, Hunters. Hunters is actually pretty decently placed. I think it was doing quite well in the previous format, and it was doing well until the new stuff came through and just overshadowed the deck like a fiend. But with some of those very powerful decks now gone, I think Hunters can actually breathe again and actually do some damage to the format. So I think Hunters just having access to the new tools it did really puts in perspective where things are going. And I think at the end of the day, you know, there's going to be new support keeps coming through. And with the villain stuff, you could tech in a few things. But I think at the end of the day, we have some good Hunter stuff. I think that's going to be vitally important. Green Bloomlord always does some surprising stuff. You know, Diaboromon's trying its best out here. Some people have success with it, some don't. Again, the deck relies heavily on having the line complete. We're playing Medieval Gallant in the list with 0 ways of searching this card. I don't know. Are you asking for a death sentence? I think you're asking for a death sentence. I mean, yes, it's great to have Medieval, but you have to draw it. And that means you rely solely on drawing it with this Koromon, which you have to have a stack on. Again, this deck suffers from like any deck that doesn't have like a full X-Antibody line. That kind of just helps filter for more draw value. Yes, it has a protection skill. It now has a way of producing bodies, but at the same time, you're struggling to get to that end game. I think 2 erratas personally are just for mem setter, you should just go to one or none. Players are, so many Diaboromon fans are like, I don't want this card in my deck anymore. To be honest with you, I think Diaboromon is a great pick for players that know what they're doing. But again, like even when I play the personal deck, it's good. But at the same time, I'm like, this is frustrating. This is frustrating. This is frustrating. Why am I missing a piece? It just feels like you're always missing a piece at the time you really need it. You know, it's just like, it feels like every other deck just gets those certain pieces, but we're just a stacking deck that doesn't have that X-Antibody line to get those extra couple draws to hopefully get there. I think that's super important. We do have plenty of searchers and stuff, but you know, it's just what it is with it. You know, we have Black Diaboro. This one did a little bit better. So let's see what this one looks like. Okay, this one doesn't have shenanigans. Okay, we can live with that. But, you know, for a lot of people are going on EX9, 8, I think. EX8's Diaboromon, EX6, sorry, Diaboromon, as a way of playing the deck as consistently as possible. Errata at this, you should never play less than 4 of this because you want to see this. 1 of this is fine because this errata does everything the world needs for you. Redirecting is cute, but at the end of the day, you want the errata. You know, being able to de-digivolve on your opponent's turn is super clutch. Being able to warp is something that a lot of players are testing out too. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be what you want to play and how you want to play the deck. At the end of the day, I think, again, I still feel like you're missing pieces, but this Armageddon is just really good. Just being able to prevent your opponent's level 7s from popping off is huge. That means there is no when digivolving effect of Omnimon. There's nothing that's going to stop you. So just keep that in mind when stuff comes up like this. You know, there is the Omni Nokia, Alter S, you know, Dukemon, Sakuya. Surprisingly enough, the big 4 of the format that I think is just going to be dominant is, you know, the Omni and Alter S version with Dukemon and Sakuya. Sakuya is possibility, has great chances. Mastimon, this card loves to come in and out of the format. Like players that are diehard Mastimon fans definitely ate extremely well, and I expect with the new support you're going to see a lot more players on the deck. And again, the promo is just that good. You know, you do have this Mirai, the 5-cost Mirai, you have the secret reprint in March, you got this one. So by the time we actually get, you know, time savers and stuff like that, if there's more Mastimon support, which again, we have a younger Mirai, so more than likely we're getting more Maste, we'll have something more for this deck to play with as a treat. You know, as I was talking with Galaxy, like Grace Nova Pure, again, as a last hurrah to use the Sionko, I kind of see where you're going for it. The deck is good pure, in my opinion. I love the pure version. But again, we lost Sionko. That hurt for the pure. Again, it should have just been like, only if you play, like, instead of ban, they should have made an exclusive text that says, if Sionko blue, you can only play with all Galaxy cards. Means that all Galaxy Digimon in deck, so that it restricted it to the Galaxy, which would have been a fantastic choice restriction, meaning that they could only lock it into Galaxy. You could have easily done this with both Sayo and Ko as well, the blue and the red, and go like only like, and it'd be a functional errata, right? It says basically legally you can only play the deck as it's intended, and just make it so there's a universal choice restrict that you can only play Galaxy based cards in the deck. So Digimon, if you play something else, you cannot play anything with it. I mean, that could have been a blanket errata, that choice restriction that could have made it permanent. You know, do what this deck wanted to do. I know that Red Sionko, they don't care that it kind of just does the level 6 gimmick, because again, the protections don't matter at that point, and then they basically become easy outed stacks if you get off the protection. So stuff like that is important. Hopefully we get a new supported in time savers. You know, you got Dukemons and stuff like that. I think at the end of the day, Royal Knights still has a shot, but I think a lot of players are off of it because I think they got offended that they can't just kill you with the, you know, play that they had before, which was using, you know, Royal Knight of the Purge of the Royal Knights or whatever, just basically draw, you know, tuck that Omni X and then spit it out, and then as long as you had the other option to keep it staying on the field, you were just chipping away damage so fast that your opponent just had no time to react. But again, I don't know if that'll keep everybody off Royal Knights. I think the next wave of Royal Knights is going to definitely change things up. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you next one. Peace.